My fellow Singaporeans, very good afternoon to you. You know, this afternoon's after work program will have to be slightly curtailed because I'm required at Mediacorp to record the constituency message for Jalan Besar GRC. But you know my disdain for the mainstream media, don't you? Well, last night's debate, they didn't invite me. All right. Although we are one of the largest opposition parties with one of the most significant number of candidates. And I have been calling for debates for 2 years now with PAP ministers. None of them had the courage to accept my challenge. And you know what? When the elections were called, there was no scheduling of debates. No one knew whether there were debates planned. And after nomination day, they surreptitiously invited 3 other opposition parties and conveniently left out PV. So, you know what? I have had enough of this nonsense. And I decided that before I head off to Mediacorp this afternoon to record my constituency message, I am going to deliver it to you. And I hope, my friends, that on the 10th of July, we are going to have an electoral revolution, and we are going to elect so many more members of the opposition into parliament that the mainstream cannot ignore opposition parties anymore and do not feel that they have the freedom to make up rules as and when they think it is convenient for them without any regard to fairness of elections. So here we go. And this is what I am going to say in the Mediacorp studio this afternoon. And this is my script, but you know, I am told that there's no teleprompter. I have not really memorized my script. I am going to go in the general direction and give you a sense of what I'm going to be saying. My fellow Singaporeans and Jalan Besarians, my party, People's Voice, has been telling the nation that it is time for real change. You are watching this program today because you know that it is time for change. It is time to put people first. It is time to make Singapore our home again. It is time to regain our dignity, our country, our future. What do we mean when People's Voice says, we must make Singapore our home again? I am sure many of you, like me, will remember a time in Singapore when there were many jobs available, when people felt secure in their careers and in their professions, when our young could graduate knowing that there were many opportunities in front of them, when people could look forward to retirement because they were able to access their CPF at 55. When the young were excited about starting families because they were not burdened with bills and new taxes. And when parents were confident that their children would have a better and not a lesser future than them. I remember a time like that in Singapore, and I know you do too. And that is what People's Voice mean when we say we want to make Singapore our home again. Today, many Singaporeans feel abandoned by this government, who have shown a generosity of spirit and love for foreigners, which they do not bestow on their own citizens. It is like a father who welcomes an alien child into the family and showers him with love and affection while neglecting his own child. That father is a bad father. Singaporeans can see for themselves the insane immigration policies that this government embarked on many years ago. We had a population of around 3 million in the 1980s. Today, our population is nearing 6 million and increasing. This government aspired to a 10 million population, even though yesterday they buckled and they made that U-turn. They buckled because of voices like the People's Voice and that of the SDP. And that shows you the importance of having strong opposition in Parliament. Because if there is no strong opposition, they will never listen to the voices of Singaporeans. The huge influx of foreigners into our jobs market has led to many breakfasts, lunches, and dinners being taken away by foreigners, and the depressing of local wages. I founded People's Voice to make Singapore our home again. A truly democratic party that has direct democracy at its heart. What do I mean by that? That means more national discussions, more referendums, more blockchain local voting. And that is so needed at this time. Many of you will remember the stolen elected presidency that happened 3 years ago. Today, we have a president that was not elected by a single Singaporean voter. And that is not the type of democracy that we want. And so People's Voice is contesting in 3 constituencies: Jalan Besar GRC, Pasir Ris Punggol GRC, and Mountbatten SMC. There are 2 aspects to being a great MP. There is the local level, where the MP must work with and listen to his constituents. And there's the second aspect, where he must be able to transport their concerns and voices into national parliament. I have a great team with me, and I'm going to introduce them a bit later. But before I do that, we must discuss the singular greatest issue facing our nation today, which is the COVID-19 crisis. COVID-19 burst onto the world in late January. You will remember it was known as the Wuhan virus in those days. And in the early stages, there was so much speculation as to whether it was a naturally occurring virus, whether it had leaked accidentally from a laboratory or purposely leaked, or whether it was a bioweapon. None of the 4 could be ruled out. And it was a real possibility at that time, no matter how slight it was, that it could have been a bioweapon. And if it had been a bioweapon, our nation needed to act swiftly and decisively to protect the citizens. But we were far from ready. Despite what the PAP told us, that they had prepared for 17 years after SARS, we did not have enough face masks. And worse still, this government mandated that events like Chingay, like the air show, go ahead. When foreign participants had pulled out in order to protect their employees, we were not protecting our citizens. And to go even further, the PAP were not even concerned about protecting the vulnerable in our society, the elderly. They continued to hold their so-called Merdeka generation events. And there were shocking scenes on social media, videos, photos, showing people packed into these events. They were more interested in holding on to that Merdeka generation vote than to protect public health. We spend billions and billions of dollars every year on our defense. And every time someone suggests the cutting of defense budget, the PAP will pounce on that person and say that they are weak on defense. They will not even contemplate the reallocation of some of that budget towards healthcare, towards free schooling. But you know, my fellow Singaporeans, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many F-35s or how well equipped our military is, or how many soldiers we have in the army, or that every son of ours is serving military service. At the end of the day, it takes courage for the leaders of a country to make the tough decisions and judgment calls in order to protect lives and the safety of the people. And COVID-19 shows that this so-called 4G leadership lack the ability to make the right judgment calls. They complain that they did not have enough facts before them. But the hallmark of a great leader is when you are called upon to make decisions and judgment calls despite the absence of full facts. And that inevitably happens on most occasions. Imagine, my fellow Singaporeans, if COVID-19 had been a bioweapon. Singaporeans would not have stood a chance. And you cannot depend on this 4G leadership to protect you in peacetime, let alone wartime. Josephine Teo has now been appointed by the PAP to lead their Jalan Besar GRC team. Josephine Teo is largely responsible for that huge explosion in the number of COVID-19 cases in the foreign workers' dormitories. That has resulted in Singapore today having the second highest number of COVID-19 cases in Southeast Asia after Indonesia, despite us having a fraction of Indonesia's population. The first foreign worker was infected in February. When that happened, she ought to have known that there was a danger of infections taking place in the densely packed dormitories. Either she did not care or she was complacent in not ensuring that that did not happen. Josephine Teo is also the manpower minister, or was the manpower minister, until Parliament was dissolved about 9 days ago now. Under her, the government would not countenance the implementation of a living wage. In fact, Josephine Teo told Singaporeans that inequality was a sign of the economic success of Singapore. Today, we have a prime minister who earns $2.2 million a year. There are many cleaners in Jalan Besar who are paid about $1,200 a month. I have worked it out. The prime minister earns about 159 times that of an average cleaner in Singapore. That is inequality on an obscene scale. I asked Jalan Besarians when they cast their vote on the 10th of July to make it a referendum on the competence and the leadership of Josephine Teo. Do you want Josephine Teo to be taking care of your constituency? Do you want her to be in charge? Will there be many more Sungai Road incidents if she is in charge of your constituency? Now let me turn to my fellow teammates who have embarked on this journey with me. The first is Leong Zi-Hian, who needs no introduction. One of the most foremost human rights campaigner in Singapore's history. He possesses 3 master's degrees and 2 bachelor's degrees, besides 13 professional qualifications. He has written 4 books, has been a former radio show host, and has been counseling people in need for the last 15 years. He is an amazing man, and he is also the first man in history to be sued by a prime minister for sharing a Facebook post without embellishment. You make your own judgment. The second member of my team is Mr. Sulaiman, who is a renowned and internationally recognized halal consultant, whose work has been recognized in 6 continents. And the third member of my team is Dr. Michael Pham, a medically trained doctor who is now a medical administrator and educator. He has written a book called about the economic plans of Singapore and Vision 2020. This is a formidable team that will be able to take care of the residents of Jalan Besar and to run the town council properly. We ask for nothing, but only for the chance to serve the residents of Jalan Besar. And we give you this promise. None of us, when we are MPs, will ever be holding 69 corporate positions. We will be devoting our waking hours and time to meeting and attending to your needs. Thank you very much. Thank you.